After one of the most competitive sweeps, I think, in recent memory, Vancouver is officially headed to the offseason as the NBA has its Final Four. Before we get to finishing this season, I wanted to start off this episode by just talking about kind of the state of the roster as I see it, maybe what we need to prioritize in this offseason. Now, to be sure, in terms of assets we don't have anything particularly strong in the way of picks. We have Atlanta's pick, who you can see right here, ended up with the 8th seed, but that's going to be one of the first picks outside of the lottery. We're talking somewhere between 17 and 19 that pick will land. But, you know, that's not anywhere close to, say, a top 5 pick where you can have a large selection of potential upgrades to your roster. We're likely going to be in a spot where, you know, we take what we can get unless we have the opportunity to trade up. Unfortunately, our future pick situation isn't anything special either, so we don't have a lot of ammo to trade up. So if we did, it would be more, you know, towards or around pick 10. I don't think we could get anywhere sniffing near the top of this class. But what should it be that we are targeting? That's the question I want to talk about here with that first round pick. We also do have a second rounder this year as well. We'll see what we can get with that. I doubt it's going to be anything special, but what did we learn here in this playoff run and who needs to be upgraded upon? That's kind of what I want to talk about here. First guy I want to talk about is Leonard Miller. Leonard isn't a bad player, and he's had some, you know, good games for us, but he hasn't really ever had a standout game. If you look at the grades, that's kind of what I'm looking for in a backup power forward, what I'm seeing here. But he just does not really play well in these spotlight games. When Sarama goes off the court and we're running this Magic playbook, he just misses a lot of shots. Just 28% from the field. Granted, it's only 4 shots a game. We're not asking a lot of him, but it's got to be better than that. And you can argue that the fact that he's a good defender makes up for the fact that he's bad on his 4 shots per game. But this is one spot that I'm certainly looking to upgrade on. Whether or not there will be an upgrade is, you know, another question entirely. But if we can get a better backup power forward for Leonard Miller, I would absolutely be down for that. But like I said, he's not a bad player, so if I could maybe draft a guy and then also re-sign Leonard to maybe package for a future pick, I would absolutely be willing to do that. We're kind of at the point in the franchise where the most valuable asset we can have is somebody else's first round pick, because I think we're going to be too good to really pick high in the draft going forward. And so with that being the case, if we can somehow get first round picks from other teams that have a chance to be higher, that's how we're going to improve our team drastically. Not that I think we need drastic improvements, but that's just our only really opportunity to, because of the nature of our draft only restrictions that we put on ourselves. Another guy that I really like in theory, but just sometimes is very, very bad in spotlight games, is Lonzo Ball. Now, make no mistake, he was really good in the first half of, I think it was game 3. He was awesome, but 33% from the field overall, 30% from deep. He's a little bit shot happy. I mean, I know he was second in assists on the team with 4.7, but he'll just fire threes off of the screen, and he's not doing so, you know, he's not making those shots at a high clip. So even though Lonzo Ball's an 81 overall, might be another Leonard Miller situation where we sign him, but we could also potentially draft his replacement. And I would need a pretty good prospect for this, because I do think Lonzo Ball, he's streaky, but he can have good moments for us. and the fact that he can play both point guard and shooting guard because of his size helps with our lineups. So that's a spot that I'm looking to potentially improve upon. There was a comment on the last video about us getting a project wing. I actually think Christie and Josh Green and McKnight, like those three wings, are pretty solid for us. That being said, with the exception of McKnight, neither Christie or Josh Green is a surefire, awesome starting caliber player. So if you're looking for a future starter, wing is the spot to do so, because we kind of have the other spots filled out for the moment. So again, if you're looking for a future starter, the wing is there. I just think Josh Green, McKnight, and Christie are a solid wing trio that we've been using. All of them shot over 40% from 3 in the playoffs. That's really good, and I'm taking that all day, any day. And then the last one, I don't think this is the off season for it, unless there's a really, really good fit for us, and I just don't think there will be where we are selecting. We did see Jalen Duren take some really ill-advised threes in this playoffs that swung 2 game ones. Neither were guaranteed wins if he didn't take those threes, but they're pretty much guaranteed losses when he's taking a 3 at the end of the game. Since I turned his tendencies down to 0, he didn't take any others. There's also other potential solutions with just changing the playbook and stuff. And so as of right now, I'm still pretty committed to Jalen Duren being the long-term center. But I do want to put it on the radar that A, he needs to stop taking threes, and B, I did kind of like a couple of stretches there with Andre Hardy at the 3, like having, even though he's just a C+ 3-point shooter, having a center that can hit a 3-point shot off the catch kind of opened up this offense at times when we were struggling. And so that made me intrigued with, a 5-out lineup that would, open the lane more for Ellis and Saramago, who I think are at their best attacking downhill, although they can also, of course, shoot. So that's just something to look forward to in this draft. In terms of the kind of prospects that I will be looking for this team, I'm looking for potential Leonard Miller improvements, ball improvements, Hardy doesn't have a ton of upside, so if we could get a similar archetype but higher upside, I wouldn't be mad at that. Or a potential future starter on the wings if we find somebody that we think can be better than one of Christie or Green as that long-term 5th starter. And then least likely by far is, do we find somebody that might be a better fit next to Saramago? I personally think Duren's a great fit, but got to stop taking those threes. So now that I've kind of explained my thought process of what our needs are, let's go ahead and find out if there are any prospects in this class that fit said needs. So for this draft, we already are familiar with the top 2 players, Lawrence Barber and Alan Larson, and even Ricky Parks. I showed you him last time. And if you're looking for the future starter at wing with the high upside, this is definitely the guy, the A+ potential that just didn't show me a lot when I watched him in the one Spotlight College game that I saw, but he definitely has the upside to eventually be, the guy that can be a really high-level starter. But all these guys are going to go too early. So the first guy I want to talk about right now as an actual option for us is Victor Jackson. A 6'10", 250-pound power forward / center out of LSU. He's got some 3-level scoring capabilities, and that's really excellent size for the power forward spots. I think would make him a pretty good fit for those power forward minutes when Ayrton Saramago is not on the court. He's the 3rd highest overall starting point in the class, and he has 2 badges to start. He likes to attack downhill a bit. He can shoot. He's not going to shoot a ton from what I saw, but he's solid at doing it. And what I like about him is he could fill the Leonard Miller replacement role, but he could, because of his size, also play center next to Ayrton Saramago, I feel like, and give us more of those 5-out looks if we want to do it with him rather than Andre Hardy, just because he's a little bit better of a three-point shooter. Not a ton. Problem with him is really his defense. He is not a defender really at all. Decent rebounding for a 4, and again, that 3-level upside. The biggest problem with Victor Jackson, though, is just an absolute absence of upside. He might already be maxed out, and if he isn't, he's probably going to max out at, like 79 or 80. So he's not going to get much better than he is right now. But if you're looking for a guy that can come in and help the team next year, this is the best option in the class. And we're getting to a point where, we have the 18th pick. It's not like we have a top 5 pick. Maybe getting somebody that can help us next year is as good as you're going to get in this class. And so he's somebody that I'm very high on. Now, if you look at where he's ranked in the class, some say he's in the 20s, which means he'd be there. Others say top 10. If you look at his draft projection, you're probably looking around, I'd say, pick 9, the middle of these. Back half of the top 10, you need to trade up to get to this player. So do you want to trade up for a guy that doesn't have a ton of upside? That's a tricky situation. He has to pretty much be a perfect fit. I think he's pretty close to that. At the 4, I kind of wanted a 4 who could play some 5, just to give us more optionality in our lineups, so that maybe just give us some 5-out lineups. This would be a good guy, I think, to pair next to Saramago. If you want to run some Saramago at the 5, that's something I haven't done yet, and mostly just because I love what he's doing at the 4, but he could be a really dominant 5 as well. And a guy like Victor Jackson would be a great combo if we wanted to try that out. Next guy I want to talk about here is Clayton Rodman out of North Carolina. 6'3", but 220 pounds. He's a very well-built player, and he is very good offensively. He also has 3-level scoring capabilities. He's also pretty good playmaking. Now, defense is a bit of a work in progress, but he's a good athlete, and he is somebody that has a lot more upside than Victor Jackson. So you're getting a worse starting point, but you're getting much more upside out of a guy like Clayton Rodman. So this is a guy that, from what I saw, he likes to attack downhill. He's not just going to be a jump shooting merchant like we've seen kind of with Lonzo Ball recently. So I like that. I feel like I've been wanting Lonzo Ball to attack more downhill than he does, and I think Rodman will do that. Now, he doesn't have the size that Lonzo has, which is unfortunate. No starting badges for him, but I mean, offensively, really good looking player. I mean, let's look at him on this, because this screen's usually a little bit more accurate, but at least B- in pretty much all of the offensive stats. Doesn't have the high IQ yet, but with that high upside, that will develop. Pretty good athlete. I guess I forgot to change his college here. I'll change it to North Carolina before the draft. But if you look, he has all NBA upside, so that's really good. And starting wise, I don't think he's a long-term starting fit next to Albert Ellis, but could he be a guy that for a few years comes off the bench and replaces the Lonzo Ball role? Like I said, I think that's a possibility in this offseason. And then once he gets good enough to, too good to be a bench player, either we can try him out at the 2, be a pretty small backcourt, or we could trade him away in a future draft, which, like I said, at this point in the franchise, other people's first-round picks is going to be kind of the best asset we can have. And so use him for a while until he gets too good and trade him away. What will likely get a pretty good return I like Clayton Rodman a lot, and I think he could be, for the next few seasons, our backup guard option for us. In terms of starting wings, other than Ricky Parks, who's going to go too early for us, there are a couple of intriguing players. I think Curtis Green here. I didn't get clips on any more players. Those are the only ones, because those are the ones that I like the most. But Curtis Green's pretty good here. 20 years old, 6'7", 230 pounds. He has one badge on him. He's more of a inside the arc scorer, but C+ isn't a bad start. C+ perimeter defensive playmaking as well. Pretty decent. Good athlete here. Has all-star upside, and he has one badge. He's also probably going to go too early, or maybe not. I must have been thinking about somebody else. Yeah, I was thinking of who was I thinking of? Anyway, we'll get to another player, but Curtis Green is definitely an option for us. Great size, pretty good athletes, a decently well-rounded skill set. I'd say he's probably my third favorite. Maybe even, like, if you take upside into account, he could even be a better player than Victor Jackson. I just think with Green that I want some better shooting, or I want some really good upside. And All-Star is good. It's not bad by any means, but it's not quite as much upside as somebody else. Greg Mann here. He's not a very good defender, and he's kind of short. He's also pretty old. That's why I'm a little bit out on him. We have Corey Owens, who could be interesting. He's more of a defender and rebounder right now, but he has all-star upside, so he could turn into a decent shooter. Also just 18 years old, so I like that for sure. Wish he was a little bit better of an athlete, though. We're going to talk about a defensive specialist. Timmy Nash here, pretty good shooter, but as of right now, that's kind of all he offers, but he does offer that All-NBA upside. So that would be a good forward prospect, 6'8", 205 pounds. He's projected to maybe be around when we pick. And then trying to find the other guy I wanted to talk about. Oh, okay, here. Donnell Carr. He's the guy that's probably going to go too early, but I do like a decent bit here. Really good interior scorer, but also can shoot a little bit. He's not a great shooter yet, but really good athlete with some really good potential as well. I like Donnell Carr. I just don't think he's going to be available for our pick, but if he is, I like that. He has one badge as well, which is posterizer, but has at least an intriguing skill set that I think could be our future backup power forward. I just wish he was a little bit better of a rebounder is the one thing I don't love with him. But those are kind of the prospects that I like in this class. One other guy that is at least intriguing, this would be the potential Jalen Duren replacement, but he's going to go high enough in this class where you'd have to trade Jalen Duren away to get him, which I'm just not going to do. It's too early for that. Like I said, if we get more evidence that Jalen Duren's just going to keep chucking up threes, that might be a problem for us. We might have to trade him in a class, and it would be for a prospect kind of similar to Alanichev, who offers that good interior defense and rebounding, but also at C- 3-point could eventually become a 3-point shooter with his upside, all NBA. So could that eventually be like B- or B from 3? I think that would be perfectly good. I think he would be a fun fit next to Saramago, but it's just at least a year too early if we're going to make that move at all. But if Jalen Duren was on the trade block, it'd probably be for a guy like Davor Alanichev in the draft. That's pretty much it in terms of prospects that I have identified as being interesting. So let's go ahead and get to the offseason finally here in this episode. The Rockets are headed back to the finals, and Alperen Şengün is your Western Conference Finals MVP, 29 with 6.5 and some good stock numbers as well. That's really good. Those are really good numbers for him. And then Tyrese Halliburton. So the two teams that have made big time trades so far in this series are the two teams facing off against each other in the NBA Finals. And in a 7-game series, Houston wins the title. Devin Booker will be your Finals MVP in this one. And so KD, back-to-back championships to end his career. I think he's got to be happy with the way that ended. And we've got a really massive crop of retirements. Durant, Harden, Steph, and Draymond all retiring in this season. We got some other names on here as well, but those are obviously by far the biggest ones. Keegan Murray is going to retire at 26 years old. So that right ankle was a career-ending injury. You do not see those often in 2K, but we get one here with Keegan Murray deciding to call it quits on his career because his ankle injury was just that bad. It really sucks for the Kings and for Keegan Murray, of course, but must have been an absolutely brutal broken ankle. Staff retirements here. Tom Thibodeau is calling it quits along with some others here. So that's a really big name that is now out of the coaching cycle. In terms of Hall of Fame inductees, no surprise here is the top 3 from this class will all retire and be Hall of Fame members. I think those are 3 easy selections. In terms of jersey retirements, the Warriors retire Draymond, and they also retire Steph, and then Durant and Harden both get their jerseys retired as well. League meetings, did anything get accepted? No, it did not. So everything rejected. So now it comes to the draft lottery, and this is a very interesting draft lottery, not because we have a pick, because we don't. But of course, last offseason, we traded away Utah's first round pick for Albert Ellis. And obviously there's a massively awesome number 1 overall pick in this class. So if Utah ends up winning the lottery, we basically traded away Allen Larson for Albert Ellis, which I love Albert Ellis, but Allen Larson is a completely different animal. We really needed a point guard. So I think it was the right decision at the time, but it's time to get to the lottery to see if we ended up giving up that first round pick. Now, you got to be aware that the Jazz have 2 first rounders, so they might win the lottery, but it might be the Lakers pick that they win it with. We'll have to find out, but because it's not our pick, I'm not going to go through it slowly. We're just going to find out right now. Did we trade away Allen Larson for Albert Ellis? No, we did not. We traded away the 4th overall pick. So the Clippers win the lottery. They will be the winners of the Allen Larson draft here. Supersonics land number 3. The other, of course, expansion team alongside of us. And then our pick is number 20. Okay, so it was a little bit later than I thought it was going to be. We did not pick until 20th in this class. I thought it'd be the late teens. And I feel a little better about that Albert Ellis pick now, because I think there's a top 2 in this class, and after that there's a pretty big drop off. And so hindsight always 2020. I think that Albert Ellis trade is officially a win for us. Staff signing, I think one thing that you can't really do in 2K, but I think Lamont Powers, we overachieved this season, and I would want to give him an extension at this point. And so we're going to give him an extension here. I think he'd get a raise probably up to like $6 million a year, and we'll give him 4 years at that price there. So congrats to Lamont Powers for getting a contract extension. Other than that, there's really nothing else for us to do here in the coach and staff period because our staff is all full up. NBA draft combine time. Now this is where we can potentially find other intriguing players. Allen King is a 6'11" small forward with all NBA upside. He's an elite athlete. The fastest 6'11" guy having the fastest sprint in the draft is certainly intriguing. I wish he was a better shooter though. That's a pretty intriguing player here. Yeah, look how bad he was at shooting the threes though. That's unfortunate. You have Donnell Carr, another guy who I know is a very good athlete. So that's not surprising there. Greg Mann. What about Clarence Watson here? He has 2 badges to start. Very much so an interior scorer, but he can kind of shoot a little bit as well. He's got all-star upside. Kind of small for a 2-guard, 6'4", 190. A little small for what we usually try to go for, but yeah, there's the athleticism. He's got solid potential, and he's got inside scoring. That's at least intriguing. Let's go for vertical. Who can jump out of the gym? Bo Tatum. Can't shoot, but he can jump. He's got no potential. Watson shows up again. Lex Taylor. He's 23 years old. Who are the best shooters in the class? You got Lex Taylor again. So he had a extremely high vert, and he also shot it well. I don't have him fully scouted. We should probably get him fully scouted. So Greg Mann shows up again. I've kind of overlooked him because of the size, but maybe I should give him a little bit more of a chance. So there's a big discrepancy here. It says C potential, but then all NBA upside. So it probably means his boom ceiling's high, but his regular ceiling isn't very high. We see Victor Jackson show up, one of the best shooters in the class. Greg Mann there again. Herb Cobb, he's a pretty interesting point guard. He just doesn't have enough upside, but pretty solid offensive player with decent athleticism, just not the upside you like there. That's why I prefer our guy. Getting his name? Clayton Rodman. That's why I prefer Clayton Rodman, just because he's got a similar starting point, but a much better upside. So, with that being said, we are ready for the NBA draft. We've got the 20th pick, and we've got, what pick do we have in the second round? We have the 4th pick in the second round, so we have Utah's pick. And let's find out exactly who we're going to be able to snag here in our 3rd draft. It's now time for the 2027 NBA drafts. And the Clippers are the first on the clock, and they make the right pick here. For the first time in the 3 drafts, the best player in the class actually goes at number 1. Allen Larson out of Tennessee, 7'4" big man, is a generational defensive prospect. He's going to be someone that's going to vacuum in rebounds and be one of those caliber of defensive centers that is almost like a top 10 defense all by himself, which I feel like really fits well with the Clippers. I think the Clippers winning the lottery is actually really fun because they have Trae Young. So I feel like a player the caliber of Allen Larson will really help cover the holes that Trae Young gives to a team and creates a really fun, dynamic duo in Los Angeles that I think they can try and start competing as soon as Allen Larson's first year. That duo is really fun. We'll see if they can add to the team in free agency or anything like that. But Trae Young and Allen Larson will be linked for the foreseeable future in Los Angeles, and probably not this year, although I think they might be able to compete for a play-in spot with those two. But we might see a team that we'll have to beat in the playoffs before too long. That's the kind of player that Allen Larson is, and the impact that he can have really early on in his career. Best player in the draft by far, and he goes correctly here at number 1 in the class. And this guy is talking about Ivica Zubac. That does not factor at all in the slightest to this pick. Hornets are now on the clock, and they take Lawrence Barber, the second best player in this class. This says number 1 in every mock, and that is not true. It was Allen Larson all along. But Lawrence Barber is a very good number 2 prospect in the class. I think in a lot of drafts, he is easily the best player in the class. 6'6", 230 pounds. This is a really good two-way prospect. And with him at the 2, alongside LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller, that 1-2-3 punch in Charlotte is starting to look a little scary. That's a lot of shooting. That's a lot of athleticism on that team. And Lawrence Barber going to be a great defender. Can hopefully, cover up a little bit of LaMelo Ball's weakness on that end of the courts. And if the Hornets can just add, a good big, that's all of a sudden a very dangerous team in the East, as long as they can, of course, keep those 3 together. Both of these first 2 picks, I think, went to really good landing spots to make them playoff threats in their early careers, because I think they're 2 very good prospects. It was an easy top 2 in this class. These 2 were the best, and they go at 1 and 2, right where they should have gone all along. Coming in at number 3 is the Seattle Supersonics, who they will trade the 3rd pick in the class. I wonder what they're going to do here. So they are taking Chris Middleton. No, they're giving Chris Middleton to the Jazz. So the Jazz are trading up to number 3, and they are taking Chris Middleton's contract for it. And they really wanted Ricky Parks, who is absolutely the upside guy in this class. Another 6'6", 230-pound player. Ricky Parks isn't nearly the athlete as Lawrence Barber, but he is somebody that is viewed similarly upside-wise. I think his upside is more as a high-end 3-and-D prospect. I think he has limited athleticism that will cap his on-ball potential. But if you're just looking at him as a strong defender who can really shoot the rock at some point in his career, I think he can absolutely provide that for you. I was a little bit lower personally on Ricky Parks. I wouldn't have taken him at number 3 myself, but I can see why teams around the league viewed him as the 3rd best player in the class. Tremendous upside on this guy. Don't know what he really does other than shooting decently from 3 in his first year. So that's the pick for Utah. And then Seattle trades back to number 4 and takes Florin Paunescu. I don't know how to pronounce that name correctly, if I'm being honest. Super upside pick. I think he's only going to start at like a 72 overall. But if you're looking for a long-term play, which I think is fine for Seattle with the spot that they're in, I think this is a decent pick. Oozing with potential. That's exactly what this pick is all about. Bojan Sebic goes to Utah here with their 2nd pick. They pick a pair of small forwards, hoping to at least hit on one of them, I guess. Not a lot about is known, and that's true. I don't know much about Bojan Sebic myself. Timmy Nash here, 6'8", out of Utah, goes number 6 to the Blazers. Decent offensive player there. Davor Alenichev, I think, is the 2nd best center in this class. Talked about him. He's got really good defense and rebounding to start, with the potential of maybe becoming some sort of stretch 5 down the road. That's got to be an intriguing skill set. I probably would have taken him 3rd in this class. He goes at number 7. Great pick for Toronto. Andy Keefe goes to the Hawks. 5'10" point guard. That's a tough sell if you're asking me, but Atlanta got themselves a point guard after losing Trae Young a few seasons ago. The Suns go center here. Lyle Mogbo is a player I think who has a really good skill set. I just personally didn't like 6'9" at center, so he wasn't really on my board, but a really good rebounder, as you can see here by the 14 rebounds a game. He has the skill set I look at for center, just not the size. Dedrick Jameson here, a 6'2" point guard out of Georgia Tech. I think he's a pretty solid point guard prospect. Don't like him as much as Clayton Rodman, but I don't think that's a bad pick necessarily by Brooklyn. Donnell Carr here, a forward prospect that I like a decent bit. Interior scorer, goes to Memphis. Toronto now on the clock at 12, and they take Travis Poole. A lot of centers at the top of this class. Poole's solid, just didn't quite have the skill set that I usually look at for center. The Heat are trading this pick to the Bucks for John Collins, and they are taking Clarence Watson out of Fordham here. And I think now that we're at 14, we can start to think about a trade up. Now, the two players that I think I like the most at this spot is Victor Jackson. Do we go with the guy that's going to help us next year? Or do we go with more of maybe a longer term Lonzo Ball replacement in Clayton Rodman? I like Clayton Rodman a lot, but you have to worry about, I think at this spot, and I totally forgot to change his college, unfortunately. But he's not from NBA G League Ignite because that doesn't exist anymore. So he's, of course, from North Carolina instead. But with Clayton Rodman, the only worry I have is making the team worse next year. I think this is a team that wants to get better heading into year 4, not worse. And so there's an argument that at least in the first year, Rodman won't be as good as Lonzo Ball. I think long-term he will be. I like what I saw from his tendencies. I don't think I talked about his past just open man tendency, but it's at a pretty good spot for a point guard as well. It's average at least, it's not terrible. So Rodman for the long term or Victor Jackson. I think the third guy would be Curtis Green. Pretty well-rounded skill set. One badge. Just the C+ potential kind of makes me nervous, even though he has all-star ceiling. I think his average potential is going to be pretty low. Which, again, you can say the same thing about Victor Jackson. I just like his skill set and his fit next year more than I like Green's. Let's just see what it would take to trade up to 14 here with the Wizards. So 20, and then I'll offer you a pair of future seconds. We'll see if that's enough to get 14 in this class. It is not. I'd be willing to maybe switch this out for our 2031 first. We have the Thunder's first that year, so I don't know if we need our own. Still no. I'd be willing to add this second, and that is enough to move up to 14 in this class. And now it's decision time. I talked about the 3 players that I like the most in this spot. What do we go for? Do we go for the upside, or do we go for somebody that I think will help our team next year? My plan was originally that one of these guys was probably going to be off the board at this spot, so I would just take the other, but having the choice makes it more fun, obviously, but also not as easy. Usually in the previous off seasons, I would do a draft preview before the draft so I could get the comment section's opinions. But in this spot, I don't have that luxury, unfortunately. So it's upside versus year 1 ability with this pick. And I've officially made my decision. So with the 14th overall pick in the 2027 NBA draft, the Vancouver Blizzard will select Clayton Rodman out of North Carolina. I just think ultimately something I mentioned earlier on in this episode is that the most valuable asset that we have left in this series is other teams' future first-round picks. And I think the upside that Clayton Rodman has will eventually maybe turn him into somebody who could eventually start at the 2, maybe. I think that'd be a pretty small backcourt, but we could maybe pull it off. Or he's our backup guard for several years, and then once he gets too good to be a backup, we could probably trade him for a pretty valuable pick down the line. Whereas with Victor Jackson, he's decent right now. Ultimately, I think it was his lack of defense with the limited upside. That combination scared me off. If he was already a solid defender, I think I would have been fine with his limited upside because he would have at least been solid at all the things I wanted him to already. But the fact that his defense might never upgrade over a C kind of scared me off just enough for me to go with the upside pick here in Clayton Rodman. And hopefully we can get somebody that can be a little bit more efficient as Jackson goes at number 16 overall. Now, is there a chance I could get both? I want to know what it would take. What do the Raptors want? Or who just picked him? Was it okay? I literally it just happened, but I already forgot who picked him. He went to the okay. It was the Raptors. What would it take for the Raptors to want to give this guy up? That's what I want to know. Because I do still like him. So they'd give it for Christie in a first, or Josh Green a first and a second. I don't know if I want to give up Christie or Josh Green in this spot. And unfortunately, we don't really have many options other than that. Let's just see. Draft day trade. So obviously our second rounder this year. I mean, I'll give a 2031 first, and I'll give away all of our seconds for Victor Jackson. If they accept it, wonderful. If not, then it is what it is. They do not accept. I don't think we have any players that will be, I want to trade that will be worth anything. I guess Alex Caruso. Do you want Alex Caruso? Probably not, but you know, he has value as a mentor, that's for sure. Screw it. I'm offering this. They say yes. So we end up getting both. We get the guy that can help us next year at power forward, and we get a point guard that I think could be the long-term answer for Lonzo. Those were the two holes that I wanted to fit the most. I didn't think we'd be able to get both, but I think Victor Jackson fell in the draft just enough. I thought he was going to go in the back half of the top 10. He ends up falling a little bit more. And there you have it. Two brand new Vancouver Blizzard to help us for the future in this class. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the final results of this draft. Alan Larson, 84 overall for this player. 6 badges on the board. Here they are. He's going to be absolutely insane. A+ potential, and if you look at the comparison, that also matches. So stellar pick at number 1. And the A 3-point shooting and perimeter defense for Barber with the A potential. Great top 2 in this class. Really big fall off after that. Ricky Parps is going to be able to shoot a bit, but another guy with really good potential. It looks like they might have fixed the potential from the last time I did a draft because everybody's potential is actually matching their comparison bar right now. Panescu here is a good defender and rebounder, but doesn't offer you much offensively. He does offer you upside though. So in the long term, can he turn into a good offensive player? That's what Seattle is hoping for here. And then Bojan Sevic. I don't really understand this pick. Okay, does everybody just have A+ potential now? Is that how they fixed it? They just give everybody A+? That kind of seems weird. No, this one has B+. That doesn't really fit the comparison because this says they should be equal while the comparison says high. So there was a decent amount of high upside here at the top of the class. You have a good defender with some shooting upside eventually with on each of, and no, they did not fix the ratings. For some people, for some reason, everyone was just listed at A+ at the top of this class. But I like this pick by Toronto. Again, I thought he was the third best player in this class. Keith, just 5'10", and he can't shoot. Like, if you're going to be 5'10", you better be an insane shooter. That's all I can say. Mogbo, solid potential. Other than maybe Keith, I'm not seeing any picks that I really hate so far. Jameson's a good playmaker and inside the arc scorer. Carr here, kind of liked him a bit, except for his rebounding. That's a decent pick. Poole, not a good enough rebounder for center for me. We got Clarence Watson. And then Clayton Rodman. Here's our first pick here of the two that we made. B+ 3-point shooter. Just beats across the board offensively. Needs to work on his defense, which we'll try to help him with. Good athleticism. And then he has listed A+ potential. Based on what I'm seeing here, it's actually probably A-, I would say. But this is the upside pick. Only has 70 overall to start, but look at these offensive grades. He's not going to play like a 70 offensively. It's just going to be, he's going to get absolutely wrecked defensively. I think that's not going to be a massive problem for us, though. If I'm being 100% honest, I think our defense was really, really good in the playoffs last year. I don't know if Rodman by himself is gonna hurt that. What I'm really hoping for is he can help our offense, because I felt like Lonzo Ball missed a ton of shots. So if we can get more efficient with those backup point guard shots, Rodman, I'm hoping can help us with that. King here, a bunch of C's across the board, but solid potential. And then Victor Jackson, another guy just going to offer us good offense, but no defense. I think that could be a risk, is that we got two kind of one-way players in this class. And there you see it. He's the lowest upside guy that has been taken in the class so far. You know, we're a playoff team going forward. I'm looking for somebody that can help us next year. We already got the upside, which made me feel better about getting the kind of ready now player as well. Whenever I can combine a high upside with a ready now player in the same draft, that's what I kind of like. Let's look at Curtis Green. He was definitely on the list of potential targets, just kind of fell short. And yeah, that potential is actually really bad. So I'm glad we didn't go with him. And I like Corey Owens a decent bit, but that's not looking bad at all. And then everybody else is pretty bad. So there's this draft. Allen Larson, of course, the best in the class. We ended up with kind of the two players I was hoping for the most in the late teens. We traded away some stuff to get him, but other than that Thunder first, I don't know if any of it was really super valuable, if you know what I mean. So I'm fine with what we gave up for these two players. And again, I think we'll have opportunities to get other teams first in the future. And the Thunder's first is honestly not a team that's probably going to be really bad anytime soon. That's most likely going to be a pick in the 20s. If it was another team that had a better chance of being bad in the near future, I probably wouldn't have given that up, but I don't think that's going to be the Thunder anytime soon with the way they've built their roster. And I like getting two new players to work with ahead of next season. Now, of course, for free agency, what did we accomplish here in this season? Well, I think we got one really exciting mentor in Damian Lillard, who is going to spend the year mentoring Albert Ellis. And I think Lonzo Ball, since he'll turn 30, might even be a good mentor for Clayton Rodman as well. We also got a mentor in Buddy Hield here for McKnight. We got a mentor here in Matisse Thybulle. We'll see where he ends up mentoring. I just wanted some options here. And then we brought back Andre Drummond to mentor, and then just follow my own rules and make sure we have 12 draft-only players. I had to sign one two-way player to get that done. But Lillard as a mentor for Ellis, I think, is going to be really, really good. The one downside is unless Thybulle can be a mentor for Saramago, I don't think we have a mentor for Mago this year. Maybe Drummond can mentor Mago instead of Duran. We'll see who ends up mentoring who. The forward options just were not really good this year, I'll be honest, in terms of the mentorships. There's some decent guard options. There's some decent big options, but the forwards, just not really good this year, unfortunately. So that's what we got for our mentors. Now around the league, what happened? We got a re-sign here for the Nuggets, Spurs, and Thunder. The Hornets got a re-sign. The biggest movement was Bilal Coulibaly, who is going to the Bucks. Going to be part of their rebuild. They're getting a 23-year-old player that's really, honestly, pretty good. It's got to be something that Milwaukee's happy about. Get a re-sign here. RJ Barrett headed to the Bulls. We got actually one of the highest overall players, which is rare, but obviously he's going to have a pretty massive drop-off going from 82 down pretty hard because he's 37 years old. Jarris Walker back to the Pacers. Ivy headed to the Warriors, trying to help replace, of course, the retired Steph. We get a couple of Bulls signings. We re-signed Lonzo Ball. I forgot to mention we did get both Lonzo Ball and Leonard Miller back, even though I might have found their replacements this offseason. I don't want to just lose the asset for nothing. So keeping those guys back. The Clippers, unfortunately, weren't super active. Their biggest signing was Dylan Brooks. I was hoping the Clippers could get aggressive here. I don't know, of course, what their situation is. I tried to get DeMar DeRozan to be one of our forward mentors, but I pretty much had to choose between DeRozan and Lillard, and I ended up choosing Lillard. Maybe there's a way we can get DeRozan in a trade to mentor at some point in the year. Mentor trades are kind of rare, but they could be fun. Although I've already sent away all of my seconds, so I don't know how that's going to work because I don't want to trade a first-round pick for a 37-year-old mentor. But there you have it. That's free agency around the league. Top end guys all stayed where they have been, which I think makes sense for these squads. I mean, the Thunder just got the 1 seed. I don't know why Shea would try to leave. This is a restricted free agent, etc., etc. So not a ton of shakeup around the league this year. Not like Luka going from Mavs to the Kings or anything. So that is your free agency period for the 2027 offseason. And now comes the most important part of this offseason. I know we added a couple of rookies, and I'm excited for them. But more than anything else, player progression is going to decide how good this next year's team will be. What kind of upgrades do we get? And oh boy, we got some good ones here. 93 overall now for Ayrton Saramago. Now 26 badges as well. Roster angst. I guess he doesn't like what we've done with the roster. I think our roster is pretty dang good with all these upgrades now. He has gold Deadeye, Pogo Stick, and Posterizer. That's going to be fun. Some silver badges as well. He's got a lot of silver badges now, and then a bunch in the bronze tier as well. This guy's going to be very, very good. Jalen Duren now has 13 badges. I forget where he was at. I think he did add... he had physical finisher. I don't know if he had that. Maybe he did, or maybe... I don't know. He does get a Hall of Fame badge now, Box Out Beast, and with Gold Rebound Chaser and Hall of Fame Box Out Beast, he's going to be an insane rebounder. He already has been 17 badges for Albert Ellis. He had 5 last year. He gained 12 badges. What? That's nuts. His IQ is already at an A. Didn't improve in the mid-range, which is kind of interesting. Only 1 silver, so that's the... I guess that's the payoff, is he got a ton of badges but didn't actually upgrade. He had 5. He only got 1 of those 5 up to silver. Let's see. Layup mixed matcher will help him. Mini marksman is going to be really big for him. That's one of the ones that we got him. Mentorship shifty shooter is going to really help him. Did not get set shooter though. Dame should absolutely have that though. So Dame's mentorship should help him even more. I really wanted Dame for limitless range, so that should be a fun bad if he can answer it, add it, excuse me. So McKnight only goes up by 2, and he only gets 2 more badges. So he's kind of getting towards the end of his progression. He does get limitless range though. That's sick. So McKnight might be pretty close to maxed out. I like the player that he is though. A+ 3-point shooting, A+ perimeter defense with B post defense. I mean, this is kind of what we're asking him to do. For being honest, his athleticism goes down again. So he's kind of losing athleticism since he got to the league. I actually want to see like the specific ratings increases that we got here. So we're getting like a lot of around 5, like 6, 4, 5 here for his shooting. Free throws up. We get a big up for his draw foul and his shot IQ. His ball handles up to 98. Big increase to pass accuracy. Big increase to pass IQ. So he's going to be a better passer. That's you like to see. His consistency's going way up. Help defense IQ going way up. Got a little bit faster. A decent bit stronger. Can jump a little bit more. That vertical's pretty insane, honestly. Albert Ellis, I think with this upgrade, he's clearly number 2 now. I think it kind of depending on the game is McKnight and Ellis. I think Ellis might clearly take over that number 2 role for our squad this year. Max Christie with a slight upgrade. He has 5 badges now. I don't think he had 5 before, so that's nice. That will help him. All offensive focus. He's definitely more of an offensive player. Alonzo, I know he had 10 badges, so he lost 1. But still a good badge set there. Josh Green has 4 badges. He didn't go up. And then Lillard, of course, is going to go down. He had 18 badges. Now he has 10. But he's really just here for... Don't tell me he lost limitless range. He still has limitless range, so we're going to have him train these 2 badges because Albert Ellis doesn't have either. And then whatever the third is, we'll figure it out. Leonard Miller went up to 77, but that's where he was at the end of the year. Hardy only goes up 1. Are you? No way, man. I was hoping for at least like 3 from him, getting more towards the mid 70s. I'm saying the low 70s is kind of an L, honestly, and no badges either. His potential is just a C. I think we traded 3 second-round picks for Andre Hardy, so that might look like a bit of an L. You can't win them all. I'm not a perfect GM. I think Andre Hardy might end up being a little bit of an L. Backup center might be a need. That's kind of on the flip side. Victor Jackson could play a little bit of center. I mean, other than inside defense, which he's a slightly worse at, Victor Jackson's better at pretty much everything over Andre Hardy. So he's a better rebounder, better playmaker, better perimeter defender, slightly worse inside defender, and better offensive player. So I don't know. We'll see what our rotation looks like. We got a couple of guys that we might trade in the near future in Lonzo and Leonard Miller. Of course, have to wait until at least mid-season this year just because of the recently signed restrictions and stuff. But Saramago up to a 93 overall and Albert Ellis up to an 86 is going to make this team, I think, dangerous ahead of next year. Now, we did get a couple of rookies, but for the most part, I don't know if they're exciting enough to do a whole stream dedicated to them. And so we're going to go through the entirety of the off season right here and finish this off and get ready for the next season. Next episode should be opening night, and we'll get our first glimpse of this year 4 squad. I'll build the lineup. I'll set up all of the rotations and mentors and everything, and we'll be ready for year 4. It's going to be a bout against the Celtics on opening night for year 4. I'm excited. I think we ultimately had a pretty successful offseason, and I'm excited to get year 4 underway and see just how good this team can be. Swept in the second round last year. I think we at least have conference finals potential. Not saying it's a guarantee. I think that's just where our potential is. Maybe still 1 year away from being like the best team in the league, depending on, of course, extra progression. But I'm really liking the trajectory of this team as well as the state of it here in year 4. Let me know what you thought of the offseason. Did I make the right draft moves? Did I pick good mentors? Let me know. And I'll see you soon for opening night. And until then, bring the Blizzard.